What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 84 of the Overview. I'm ChanManV, and got Fishstix here with me. Got Doomfist here with me too.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Surprise. And I
CP
promised
us high and dry again.
I promised we wouldn't have Doomfist to some people on Twitter. Boy, was I wrong. But we don't need DP. We've got this awesome guest with us today. Clockwork from the Houston Outlaws. What's up, man?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. It's been months and months coming. When was the last I asked you? Like,
that
when was it?
So long ago.
Was
that
it
was
so-
like
Oh my
that
god.
was at least a year ago.
Was it a year ago? Oh my god.
I think so.
Wow.
Oh god, because I was looking, it was on Discord. And I was like messaging you, and I'm like, oh yeah, and I forgot like when I asked you last, and then I didn't see the date. It was a year ago.
Yeah, I think it was before I even joined NRG.
Oh my
I think.
god. Yeah, I
So
think
that's a long time
Eons
ago.
ago.
it might have been like right before one of your mini breaks or something like that. So I'm not sure, but I'm glad we're finally having you on because I've one of the things I wanted obviously the overview audience to be able to hear is just really your story just with Overwatch and how you felt about it and just what kind of got you motivated and didn't. So we're gonna get a chance to hear that tonight, which I'm excited about.
Yep.
Yeah, so we've got not that much news this week. I mean, there wasn't like, a ton of like player news and things like that, but obviously we had a big kind of thing happen in the community, which we'll get to a little bit later on. But why don't we just dive straight in? Like we definitely wanted to, do a minute interview with you, Clockwork, and just kind of get you just the history of you in gaming, but obviously more importantly your Overwatch history. But yeah, why don't you give us a little background just of your game for a lot of folks that don't know where you came from in terms of your gaming background. Like, how'd you get started?
So I think I started really as a console kind of player. My mom bought me an N64 when I was like 5 or something. So I kind of rode that wave for like
The golden eye.
really. Yeah, my first real like competitive game, I guess, was like Super Smash Brothers Melee. I learned,
Oh yeah,
Good game.
yeah, I
Still
learned
a
like
good
all. Well, I mean, like now we're like miles ahead of where we were before in terms
Mhm.
of like tech skill and stuff you can do in that game. But back then, when really the advanced stuff was like wave dashing and all that stuff, I learned that in my room. I just sat in my room grinding it all day long.
Yes.
And I was too young to really travel and compete for real. So I didn't really compete, but I was competitive with myself and my friends and people who were really local.
Mhm.
So it was like my real, true first competitive game. And then I moved on to CS Source a little bit because my friend had CS and I'd never played it before. And I just pubbed. I mean, I didn't have a good gaming mouse. I didn't even know what sensitivity was. I just kind of rolled with it.
Yeah.
And then TF2 was after that, and that's where I really kind of hit my stride. I didn't even really know what competitive gaming was at the time. I just played and somehow found myself in sort of like an inner circle of people who played the game competitively. And I was like, oh, what's this? And then I kind of worked my way up. I didn't really get into the true competitive scene of TF2 until I think it was really college. I started when I was like 16, pubbed a lot, and then I probably took a bunch of breaks because I was in high school. Like I had a girlfriend one time, and I didn't want
Oh no.
to play games.
Right.
Like that for a while. And then when I went to college, that's when I really started everything fresh. I didn't really have many friends there. I didn't have a girlfriend there, so I just kind of played TF2.
It's amazing how the college schedule is so much more conducive for becoming a pro player.
It really is.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And I went to my first LAN when I was 18 or 19, and I just kind of kept growing from there. We went to England my first time out of the US ever when I was like 19 or 20, and we kind of repeated that journey over and over again.
Mhm.
I won 2 world championships in TF2. I won a ton of ESEA ones. I don't know, like maybe 7 or something.
Yeah.
And
those of you who might not know, he's one of the great players in the TF2 history. So,
yeah.
I don't know. Are there legendary status in TF2 right now?
I mean, there's definitely there's like a database of like all the best players, like the things that they've won and stuff.
Yes.
So I mean, it's very like low key, but I'm definitely record number 1, 2, and 3 on
Yes,
most
he's a
frags ever in
legend,
a
guys.
match. So
Yeah. I never really followed this scene super closely, but I always heard of guys like you, guys like Banny, guys like Harblue. In my mind, were like, okay, those were the all-star TF2 players, and you were playing Scout for basically entirely Scout, right?
Yeah, you didn't really off class that much in that game. I mean, I was capable of playing Soldier, Demo, Medic, but when you played in a match, you played pretty much your class, unless you off class to like Sniper or something, which was not that deep of a hero. Like you really just had to click on people. So it was mainly Scout, and then ever so often Spy, Sniper, but Scout was my thing.
And how long did you play TF2 competitively? How many years, roughly?
Probably like 5. So I started in college when I was like 18, and I graduated college. So maybe like 4 or 5. Yeah, because by the time I was done was when Overwatch was picking up. So I was around like 23. Yeah.
All right. So you obviously had like a very prolific career, in TF2, and the thing about TF2 is just that, like most games, that we've seen just historically, games are super popular, and then they, kind of die down a bit, and with the just the surgence or the resurgence of esports, the longevity of games have been able to increase by a lot. So with TF2, I know, just the TF2 community itself was like kind of shrinking a little bit at the time. And then with the news of Overwatch, I mean, definitely there was just already plans to kind of switch over. People like Brandon, were planning way ahead, right? Just to really get on the streaming and get on that really quick. How did you feel about all this stuff? Because, I know you obviously were on teams very, very early in the beta and had a lot of success too. But what was your
earliest teams?
Yeah, the early exactly.
It doesn't get any earlier than that.
That's right. Much. But what were your feelings about transitioning? Like, did you want to, or did you just feel like you had to?
I don't know. It started so the last ESEA LAN we ever had, because ESEA dropped TF2 for LANs. They only had finals online. So the last LAN we ever had, everyone kind of already knew about Overwatch. It's like, see you in Overwatch, man. Like, see you in Overwatch. Like when we were all like saying our goodbyes and stuff. I remember Platinum. He was a TF2 player. He planned on playing Overwatch. Didn't really work out for him because he didn't have time. But it was like sort of this like mythical. Like I didn't really know it was going to be a thing. I just kind of concentrated on TF2 and I guess like college at the time. And then when Overwatch came out, it sort of all just like hit me at once. I wasn't ready for it at all. I was like, oh, new game, I guess. And I wasn't really too into it because the rule set was weird. That was back when we had 0 hero limit or no hero limit. So like
no hero limit, and also you're talking about like pre-stopwatch even.
Yeah, it wasn't even like, oh god, yeah.
It was like
dark times.
Like I think we were even the first team, not Enigma, to just run a bunch of divas. I'm pretty sure it was like in a scrim against Coolmat's team at the time.
Yeah, where you just it was like on
we were gonna get capped on like Gibraltar or something, and instead of like getting capped, we all just switched to diva and fly around the cart, infinitely, and they can't cap. And it's like stuff like that. It made me. I was like, are they gonna change this? Like, am I actually gonna enjoy the game if they do change it? So I think after, so that they had that first hiatus, right? From Christmas to like New Year's, that time when the game first came out. And during that hiatus, they decided to go with another player instead of me on that not Enigma team with Enigma Seagull, Dummy, or he wasn't on the team anymore, but that group of people, they picked up like Harblue and all that stuff. Yeah. And I wasn't really surprised because I really wasn't committed at all to the game because I didn't think it was really going anywhere. Like for me, even in the esports scene with the way the rule set was. So I just kind of took a step back. And I think this is where there's like a little bit of a misunderstanding from the community about how many times I quit or whatever. Because I really only truly quit that one time. I saw what the rules were and I was like, I'm just going to sit back and wait, see like how the game develops, see if it gets better. And in the meantime, my friend on his TF2 team, someone stepped down. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll step in. I'm not playing Overwatch right now. I'm just kind of scoping it out. And for me at that point, I just, if you're a good player in TF2, you just win. like we were just gonna win. So I was like,
Right.
oh, another like $1,000, I'll take that, like
Yeah.
whatever. So I played, and then even during that season of TF2, I still scrimmed with I think it was pre-Splice at the time, a team that was eventually became Splice. I was playing with them while I was playing that TF2 season, because TF2 isn't really a game you have to scrim 6 hours a day or whatever. So I would just play with them, and then by the time TF2 season was over, I just immediately switched back to Overwatch, and then I've pretty much been just completely dedicated since. I was on Splice, then NRG, then GFE, then FNRGFE, then now. So it was 2 years, something like that, 1.5 years.
Yeah, so definitely there was misconceptions about what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I even heard things like you were getting a job and stuff like that. So it's just, it's just like completely retiring from gaming. So none of that was true, clearly. And in fact, you kind of just had, at least a tiny foot still in Overwatch that whole time. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, really cool. I was watching like people play as I was playing TF2. Asking Enigma, talking to Pure. So
yeah. So I remember in the early days, one of the things that got me so excited about this game was the TF2 and a whole lot of other similar games were kind of sitting by the wayside in esports for like years and years and years. Guys like you, guys like myself, even guys like Tailspin were just grinding away at all these games. And obviously TF2 is much bigger than most of the other games I'm talking about, but still, I mean, the competitive scene was not big. And one of the things that really excited me in the early days was this is a new game. It's a chance for all of these different communities to show their worth. I'm looking around right now, and the Quake guys are no longer here.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the Tribe guys are gone, but TF2, there's actually still a lot of you guys sticking around, huh?
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of us still. I thought it was interesting because I agree, because I knew Tailspin and Buds. I didn't know them. I didn't really talk to them, but I played against them briefly when they played Shoot Mania, because I messed around in Shoot Mania a little bit when I was playing TF2 still, and it's just funny to see them again when I started this game. In fact, Tailspin added me. I saw him streaming one time before Overwatch even came out, and I went into his chat and I was like, "Yo," and then he added me on Steam to see if I wanted to make an Overwatch team with him when Overwatch came out. And at the time, I was still committed to my TF2 people. So we were going to make a team out of Tech, I guess at the time was the original plan. So I was like, oh, no, if, something doesn't work out, for sure, man. But otherwise, I'm probably making a team with Tech. So just interesting the way everyone's storylines kind of came together.
Became rivals actually after that.
Yeah, and then you ended up playing against Tailspin and Cool Matt and those guys in that first ever.
Weird.
That first tournament. I think it was called the Fishstix Invitational.
Yeah, I think it was called that.
But even the Quake guys, I've known all the Quake guys too, because I used to play Clan Arena constantly in Quake, because I didn't really want to learn Duel. Yeah, exactly. I didn't really want to learn Duel and item timings and stuff. But I played a ton of Clan Arena, top level Clan Arena. So against all the people I used to play. So I know all of them too, like ID, Clock at the time when he played, Rafa. I knew them all. So it's kind of interesting.
Why do you think it is that the TF2 players have, transitioned the best out of all the different games?
I don't know, really. I mean, I think
it's really the role thing. I mean, is it really the role aspect of it? You think so?
It might be. I mean, I think it's the closest. I think TF2 is the closest.
It is by far the closest.
Yeah, compared to the other ones. Even just game types, Payload. We didn't really play Payload competitively in TF2, but everyone kind of had an understanding of what it is. So I think it draws a lot more people too.
There were a lot more TF2 players too.
That's what I mean. Exactly.
Yeah. There was, I mean, the scene was bigger at the time than pretty much all these other games.
Yeah.
So actually, I remember in the early days, you were definitely one of the outspoken critics of the game. Has your perception of the game changed? Obviously, there's been a lot of balance stuff. We didn't, at the time, there was no King of the Hill game type. Hero limits have been put in the game. Has this changed your perception, or have you just grown to like the game more?
I mean, I think I've definitely grown to like the game more. I think in general, when you play a game more and you get a better understanding of the game, you start to like it more. You're more accepting of, the times that you die or you mess up or whatever. But I think the hero limit thing definitely helped a lot, because there was just really no structure at all.
Not now.
Oh, there he is.
Not now. Wow. Okay.
There he is.
Oh, he didn't actually mean to do that. But
I think he
ZP's apparently
I think
here
he's
now.
yelling at his roommate or something.
Oh, Doomfist.
We've been
dude.
joined by
I
Doomfist.
actually stumbled into the room, hit my thing, unmuted. It's been a thing.
Welcome to the show,
What's up?
ZP. What's up, dude?
Oh, well, aside from hitting my shin on the way in and saying I'm okay, yeah, hello, Clockwork.
We're just like nerding about it.
Yeah.
Nerding out about history right now. Esports.
Yeah.
You know how it goes.
And so no hero limit, obviously making a huge difference for you. And
Really made a huge difference. And then scrims too made a huge difference. I never really played a game competitively that also had a matchmaking system. So like the furthest I ever got, or the closest I ever got, was CS. I played like a little bit of CSGO, but I wasn't good enough competitively to really notice that much of a difference between matchmaking and actual scrimming and matches. But in this game, it was super different too, which really turned me off. And I'm sure it would have been the same way in TF2 as well. You know, the TF2 matchmaking system were popular in any regard.
Oh yeah, that came out, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I'm sure. I mean, it is a huge mess already, for sure. But no one plays, so it's hard to really judge. But I'm sure if people played, it would be a huge mess too, because there's always going to be people who don't want to play the roles that are required, and that's always going to be a mess. So it's been a lot easier for me over the years to just concentrate on scrimming and matches and taking that super seriously, and that's really fun. I'm way more motivated to play the game when I'm in a team environment. So
do you ever ladder?
Let me ask you,
do you actually ladder at all then, or no?
Oh no, I do. I play.
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
I just don't like really. It's not like a huge priority.
Yeah, got it.
I'm way more into it when I'm in scrims and matches and stuff.
let me ask you this, because I know we've talked a lot about it over time in regards to the game and everything else, but how was it evolving to sort of the hero-based shooter that Overwatch is? Because even though TF2 was a class-based shooter, you didn't really have the concept of like, here's a tank character that kills you when they're within X amount of space, whereas now you're in Overwatch where you had to deal with the entire concept for a while of like, this is Winston. If he gets as close to you, you die, and it doesn't matter how well you aim at him.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. In TF2, we had like a very brief understanding of that because, in TF2, if you were a soldier or something, you got a buff from a medic, you'd be at 300 health. So in general, you still don't really want to like run into a soldier because all he has to do is shoot the ground with a couple rockets and you're dead. So it was like almost like a tank, but it wasn't really the same thing because you had more movement, you had more options, and it was a lot easier to make that decision to go in and then take that decision back and be like, oops, just kidding, and leave. Like you can't really do that in this game. If you run into a Winston trapped inside his bubble with no resources, you're just dead. And that was your fault. And there's really no like outplay potential of that from your side, except for to not make that decision in the first place. And that was something to definitely get used to, for sure. Because in TF2, again, it was like way more freestyle. You could just kind of run around and make your own decisions, and then have your mechanics just back up your decision.
So one thing with your just history, with your team history, actually, you've been on quite a few teams, and I would think that a player like of you, just of your caliber and just knowing even just what little I do know of you so far, is that you'd probably stick with the team for a long time. So I kind of am curious as to what made you move around so much, and what kind of landed you where you are now, or maybe even just a little bit before that with NRG FE and just really sticking with that team even for as long as you did.
Yeah, I think a lot of like me leaving these teams or just not being on the team anymore, they were kind of unfortunate. NRG was really the only time I got cut from a team. So I didn't really have a choice in that matter. But Splice, the reason I left Splice is because I got to join NRG instead, right?
Right.
And I already knew a bunch of people on NRG too. So it was almost like I wasn't leaving a team. I was leaving a team, but I was joining a team that I also knew all the players on very well. So it kind of felt like a second home. And then obviously all that went down. And then I joined GFE, and we really stuck together with GFE through all the hardships. We made like a couple replacements along the way, and we made FNR GFE. And Enigma left that team because he didn't really have the time to play. Otherwise, we would have probably kept him. And I mean, if Owl didn't really come along the way it did, we probably still all be playing together.
Mm-hmm.
I'm usually very loyal to my teams. I've always kind of been that way. In TF2, I was with the same group of people pretty much my entire career. I guess 2 groups of people my entire career. So I take being on a team very seriously, and my relationships with those players very seriously.
How different has it been adjusting to the just competitiveness of a game like Overwatch, where, you know, both you and I played a whole bunch of old school FPS games. Of course, I was on the Tribes end of it. You were on the TF2 end, but the practice schedule to be number one in some of the older FPS games was never so intense, where you had your grind period where you got good at the game and really just truly enjoyed pubbing it. But then once you sort of hit top player status, you didn't always have to play to the degree that you do in Overwatch, where in Overwatch, it feels like there's an ever increasing standard of practice, right? Where not only do teams have to scrim, anywhere from 4 to 5 or more days a week, but the onus on you as a player to continually hone your mechanics couldn't be any higher, especially with the amount of money involved and everything else. How has that transition been? Because at some level, does it sort of really hammer home the point that even though this is a game, it's also now work in a sense as well?
Yeah, for sure. I don't think anyone from TF2 was really ready for what Overwatch was, for what being like a professional gamer was. Because a lot of the time in TF2, you'd have people complain that we scrimmed for like 2.5 hours that night. Like, what are we doing? Like, can we just do our own thing? Like, we already scrimmed like 3 times. You want to play another one? So it was like so different. Now you really do have to think about it as a job, which is something you didn't have to do in TF2. I think that caused a lot of players to fail that tried to come from TF2. I know like a friend of mine, Kozen, he was really good in TF2. He didn't really, I think he's trying to play again now, but when he first started playing, he wasn't really ready for how much time he really needed to dedicate to the game. He wanted to do like his college tennis thing on the side and like all this other stuff, and he just can't do it. I got lucky and I went to college when I played TF2, so the time I had to dedicate to TF2 didn't really hamper much of my college experience. Whereas, for people who are in college now and they're trying to get into Overwatch, it's a heavy workload for sure. You have to like have your social life, you have to have your schoolwork. God forbid you work a job on the side too. Like, you really just don't have any time for Overwatch.
I don't think there's anybody that has a job on the side, right? That's impossible.
No, you can't. It's impossible. Yeah. So like you have to just give that up completely. You have to maybe even lighten your school workload, drop out of college for the time being. It's definitely a heavy commitment that people didn't really have to deal with when they played, TF2, Tribes, whatever. So,
not go to college in some particular instances here.
That's definitely true.
Definitely, just even the change that parents have to even take looking at this, I think has been even pretty enlightening to see, at least a few parents that we've gotten a chance to talk to.
Oh, you've talked to parents?
Well, I mean, like Jake's, and Sinatra's, they definitely have I don't know, maybe a more, a forward-thinking type of view on things versus like your average parent. But it's refreshing and great to see that, to see that type of support for this industry that's obviously growing, and we obviously want it to become super huge, and it's actually got that kind of trajectory, and even people like them are believing in it, which is really, really awesome.
Yeah, it's definitely cool. I couldn't imagine like 7 years ago telling my parents like, oh, no, I don't really think I want to go to college. I want to, try to pursue TF2 at the time. It just wouldn't happen. So
it's remarkable how it's changed over time, because this is where I start dating myself. But I think about my experience in esports and all the rest, and this just wasn't an option when I was turning 18. Now, I actually do think that age in esports is somewhat overblown. I think you could be really effective even into your early 30s and so on and so forth. But it's about finding if you want to really grind that out. But the point is that when you are sort of at your era of max, I want to grind 1 billion hours a day, which I feel like is when you're a little bit younger. This was an option for me, and like Clockwork wasn't even an option for you, though you're certainly younger than I am. And you've just seen everything evolve over time. Now we're just like, oh, I'm really good at a game, and there's a clear career path that's there now that wasn't necessarily there even as early as 5 years ago.
Shit, even 2 years ago.
Even 2 years ago.
Seriously.
It's true.
It's definitely true though. Like when you're 18 or something,
Yeah,
like that's
crazy.
your prime time of like, I'm going to grind this game. I don't care about anything else that's happening. I just want to play the game. You know, I don't care about friends. I don't care about girlfriends. I don't care about social life. I don't care about school, really. That's the time that you can really dedicate to games, I think. Because as you get older, even like around my age, it's like you want more, you know? Like you want to have that social life. You want to have like an experience that isn't just playing 20 hours a day, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like 18-year-olds, that's what they do. 16, like you're playing 20 hours a day and you're forgetting about everything else.
You don't got bills to pay. You don't got anything.
You don't have bills to pay. You don't have
man.
anything.
Mom and dad are doing your laundry.
Exactly.
I mean, it's like
your wrist is still prime. It's it's
Yep.
not. It's perfect. It's time when you want to be dedicating.
Well, actually, that's a good point to sort of segue into is that in your case, Clockwork, obviously, like I said, you're not really that old or anything, but how has like getting older affected your ability to play the game? And it's just sort of, I guess, probably gonna be reiterating some of your earlier points, but basically what's different in terms of your practice now and like how you have to approach it versus your practice back in the day?
I think back in the day it really was, I was just so infatuated with games that I could just play constantly and never get sick of it and never feel like I'm fatigued and want to just keep going. Whereas when I've gotten older, it's more about balancing different aspects of your life in addition to, just playing. I don't really think physically I've changed much. Like I don't really notice like any difference in my aim, reaction time, any of that. Again, I'm not really that old, but still, like I haven't really noticed anything like that. I think a lot of it stems from motivation. And I think when you see like a lot of teams in esports that are maybe like late 20s, like maybe like Virtus Pro or something, I don't really know exactly what their practice regimen is, but I assume they're a lot more forgiving on the practice side of things. Like I'm sure they have their own lives, right? Because Pasha has like a wife or something, a lot of them have lives.
Yeah, he has a kid.
Yeah.
That's by
so
itself.
Like you have a lot of things to do that can really, not put yourself on the same level as the other players that are 18 years old and they're just grinding the game. That's a huge thing. I think the whole reaction time, like you're too old to play, is very overblown. I'm sure there's like some small little margin of, I'm not as good as I used to be, I'm not as fast as I used to be, but a huge part of it is definitely the motivation you have, or the time, I guess, you really have to put in. So a lot of people who get older, they don't have it.
Okay, well, I mean, I guess kind of maybe it might be going down a little bit of a rabbit hole here, but, we have kind of that type of analogy right now whenever a lot of people talk about the Koreans and their kind of lifestyle versus even just the lifestyle here in the West, no matter how old you are, right? Like we tend to have a different type of scheduling and practice regimen than they do over there. So I guess my question to you is, if that's what you're going against, is it going to be the situation where they're just going to be better than you and from like that type of practice standpoint? Or do you think that they are going to eventually have a type of schedule that's going to be more balanced? Which do you think is going to give, I guess? Which side?
I definitely think as time goes on, I think it might be a little more balanced for them because I think there's definitely diminishing returns when it comes to games like this, the amount of time you put in, because everyone sort of gets to a certain level of understanding of how to play the game. And once everyone's sort of there, the difference between putting in like 20 hours and 15 hours during X time period, I think is very negligible. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the beginning of the game, like especially that's why you see so many people were so good for so long and people finally caught up because they put so much time in the beginning and no one else really did. So they learned about the game while everyone else was slacking off. But as time goes on, I think the more balanced approach is a lot more important because the amount of time, the raw amount of time you put in isn't as beneficial to you as a player as, I don't know, finding that right balance in your life to really put yourself in a good mindset to compete. Mm-hmm. So I think that is definitely the goal for most teams as time goes on. I think the Koreans we'll only get closer to the Koreans as time goes on.
Yeah, that didn't exactly happen in other esports. Well, I guess like it is starting to happen in StarCraft a little bit, at least. Yeah. Well, anyway, we talked a lot about your background here. Let's talk about the future and well, let's talk about today and the future. We're a little bit less than a month from the Overwatch League preseason starting. It was just announced, what was it, 2 weeks ago, that you will be joining some other very talented players on the Houston Outlaws roster. Actually ends up being a big chunk of the FNRG FE squad transitions over to this team. You've also got guys like Linkser. Talk about this roster and what it means to be part of the Houston Outlaws.
I'm super excited for the future, really. I know everyone on this roster pretty well, and the people that I don't know, we're getting along very well. We've all just recently moved in, so we're going out to dinner a lot. We're having fun. I respect everyone immensely on the roster as a player. I think we have all the good parts, really, all the parts required to become a real threat. So I'm definitely excited. FNRGFE as a whole, we were like a family. We knew each other really well. We were great friends. So even just having that foundation within a team, I think is really important, so that the team doesn't tear itself apart. You have like a very strong core of people who are very, they just work well with each other. They're just used to dealing with each other. So
Speaking of,
yeah,
I was gonna say, speaking of Outlaws getting together here, going into practicing now, obviously, like checking out Twitter, you guys have all just been moving in last week and this week. When do you guys start practicing again in earnest? And I guess what is the level of prep leading into preseason, going to regular season? Is there a ramp up, or are you guys just gonna hit the ground and start on the full-time schedule within the next week or two?
So we are waiting for all of our Europeans to get here. So we probably won't start practicing for real until at least Banny and Linkser and Spree make it over. So that's probably within the next couple of weeks. And then once that happens, we'll probably, I don't really know, because the preseason, there's a break, right? Obviously after the preseason, there's Christmas and New Year's and stuff, and then you go back to the regular season. So it might actually just be beneficial to hit the ground running in the preseason and just put a lot of time in and just see where it takes you. I mean, I don't think anyone is really, taking the preseason super seriously. You just want to kind of scope each other out and see what's going on, see who your threats are, if you have any strengths versus different teams and stuff. But I think it's important to hit the ground running, just because you're going to have a break subsequent to that right after.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
You want to at least get as much time together as you can before the regular season starts, which is January, sometime in January, right? I don't know if it's...
Well, I mean, I guess the teams don't have to take a break if they don't want to, but
it
sounds like at least you guys will be taking.
We probably will, just because, I mean, for us, we're all from different parts of the U.S. So if people want to go back home for Christmas, either family catch up because we've been away for a while now, or we will be away for a while when that time comes up. So we definitely want to, make sure everyone is mentally there and they're not homesick and they're feeling like, they have family by their side.
Yeah. So one thing, I guess, kind of leading into you being picked by the Outlaws, were you worried about not being picked? I mean, because you were one of the later players, I would say, that was like, appeared on the Houston roster. And, Flame was on here talking a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah, I was in talks with the Outlaws for a while. I just, we all had the same signing process, so we all kind of got signed at the same time, even though we were in talks with Outlaws for a while. But I was definitely worried for a little bit, about not getting into Owl, because as you can see, there are a lot of like fantastically talented players that didn't make it in, right? So it's definitely, it was on my mind for a while. Then I know Muma always wanted to continue to play with me, so I know Muma was like a hot commodity, so I was hoping that I could at least, get like a recommendation from him for another team or like something like that, something like that. Because I mean, like I think all of us on FNRGFE deserve to get into Owl, because we're all fantastically good players. We showed that we know how to work as a unit. We made it to the semifinals of Contenders on no budget. We had no sponsor, we had nothing. So I think it's pretty impressive, and I don't know. I think that for a while I was definitely worried, and then once Flame got into contact with me, everything brightened up a bit. Because
pretty strong.
The flame brightened up.
The flame,
the flame brightened the room.
It's you. It's Muma. It's Flame. It's Messer. Are there any other guys that play TF2?
Yeah. So it's me, Jake.
Jake
yeah,
as well.
Jake,
Uma,
right.
Boink, Mezer, Tyrong.
Tyrong? I didn't know that.
He played.
Okay.
Yeah. Who am I missing? I feel it'll be really embarrassing if I miss someone.
There's not
Not
many.
Danny.
There's not many people.
Who was not important in TF2 at all, but technically played? Like, who was on? I know this feel. Who was like on the tier 3 team where you're just like, yeah, that guy played my game. I did recognize him.
Jake played Highlander, didn't he?
It was sort of like no, he played a little bit of UCA Invite and stuff too, but he was definitely not like as prolific as like Muma, Boink, and me. Flame played TF2.
Yeah.
So I miss that. So
let me ask you this. With Optic in the signing process, obviously you guys have more than 6 players. How have they gone about the entire issue of playtime and who's going to play what, if you can go into it? If you can't, just leave it be. But basically, were they up front and saying, look, we're going to evaluate how well you guys are playing. You're all going to get shots. And, the starting roster will be who we think is playing best at the time. Where I guess, are you in a situation where they're sort of telling the DPS, prove yourselves, and there'll be opportunities sort of deal?
Potentially. We really haven't gone too much into what the starting roster is going to be. I'm sure we'll have one, but I'm sure it will also revolve around what's popular at the time, even who we're playing against. Like we could be playing against a team that doesn't deal with X heroes correctly. So we'll put in the players who are really good at those heroes instead of the players who aren't. And then we probably have, we're going to have it all around, like this is our starting roster kind of thing. And then we'll rotate people in based on what is meta, what's not, what's weak against this, and what's strong against that. So I think we're really just going for a big cohesive unit of understanding, helping each other get better. We have enough people to even put together a practice team. We have like 12 people, and Mezer and Tyrong both played Overwatch. So they can...
What about Flame? Flame played Overwatch.
Yeah, true. But we have 12 without him. So
I will say, you do have a lot of tough competition in the DPS spot. We're talking about potentially 3 of, like, I literally think the other DPS on your team are like 3 of the most flexible DPS players in the entire game. I mean, Linkser, Jake, Mendo, these guys can play literally any character in the game.
Yeah, Mendo especially is like really good at flex heroes, like even tanks. So that's definitely one thing we have going for us. But I don't know. I think I'm a lot more flexible than people think I am too. I'm definitely, I can play pretty much any DPS hero. The only one that I'm not confidently strong on is Genji, but we have Linkser. So Linkser is
my counterpoint to that you just mentioned there, Fishstix, would just also be the idea that, well, it's great that all 4 players can be flexible. Wouldn't it be better to start specializing a bit and tell each player to sort of develop their zone for heroes that they really practice in heavily, and therefore your flexibility comes the idea that you can swap people in and out between maps because these players have put in above average play time on heroes you're likely to run in the set versus going, oh, it's this player, he can run anything. But then you get outclassed by a specialist on another team that's running the one thing they run really, really well.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's our goal, pretty much, is to just have everyone select the heroes that they want to get good at or that the team feels like they should get good at, and then we can just work from there. It's really not that important if, I'm passively good at all the DPS heroes. Right. That doesn't really do anything for anybody. You want to have people be amazingly good at 2 to 3 heroes, and then you can just throw them in whenever you need them. So
can you be amazingly good at 3 heroes? I mean, I can see 2. I can see people being super good at 2.
Yeah, it depends like what the heroes you're playing are, right? I mean, a lot of them have similar play styles, at least like aiming styles, like McCree and Soldier. If you're really good at Soldier, I feel like you should be able to be pretty good at McCree at the same time, just because the aiming style's very similar. So you just have to adjust your play style given what hero you're playing. And then to add another one on, I mean, maybe if it's like Reaper, like Reaper is a very basic hero, right? So like if Reaper became popular, you could definitely juggle those 3 heroes pretty easily, I think. Because Reaper is really not much.
What heroes do you potentially see yourself focusing on into the future? Knowing, of course, that this answer could change based on what everyone else is playing. But if you had to pick 3 heroes where you think you might sort of make that your zone, what would that be?
I think it would really just be Tracer, Soldier, McCree, probably. I mean, it depends, like, what, the other heroes, how popular they become. Like, if Reaper became a really good hero, I honestly think I'd be the best Reaper in the game.
Old
until
school,
that time,
man.
until that time comes,
Shotgun.
it's kind of pointless to think about. But, I mean, I think I'm really good at Pharah, too. I would love to, like, practice my Pharah. I think I could easily be really good at Pharah. I was always really good at rockets and projectiles and stuff. I just never really put the time in because I was always the hit scan player. So
yeah,
but I'm really good with projectiles for sure.
It's good to have a lot of overlap. I mean, as much as there is like competition with 4 DPS players here or 4 people capable of it, I mean, people are going to slump. It happens to every single team. Like whatever great DPS player we're talking about for like a month, the next month they seem to go into a slump, whether teams have adapted to them, focus on them, or whatever. So I think it's actually good to be able to, sub somebody much more fresh, might add a different element to playing even the same hero.
Yeah.
So it's good.
That's like the thing. Yeah. Like even when you play the same hero, you could just have a different mindset as to how to play the hero. Like Baby Bay, for instance, when he played Soldier, he was like just a super aggressive, in your face, like
That's right.
standing in front of the other team, just getting chain healed by all his healers, running away when he needs to. And you compare that to like Jake. It's like way different, right? Like Jake just plays like more positionally, tries to outsmart positionally. But Baby Bay was just, I'm going to stand in front of you. I'm going to try to hit every shot. And then if I do, you're dead. And I win, Well, so there's definitely different styles too.
When you think about that, the next level of Overwatch coaching very well could be coaching the, just for matchups against a team where maybe that they're going to be running, say, you're going against the Shock and you're up against Baby Bay. He's going to be super aggressive, and therefore you tailor your strategy around like dives that can take advantage of a soldier that's out of position in the sense of being a little bit aggro. And then you also have the counterplay there where you just go, oh, they're really keying in on this one player. They did their homework on player X. Why don't we swap him out and mess with their game plan?
Yeah.
So you do have like this extra layer there that I think good coaches will eventually take advantage of. I'm not sure how much we'll see people take advantage of in season 1, but in theory, the depth is definitely there.
I wonder if it's going to be like baseball, where you actually have to turn in your lineup sheet.
That's what I'm saying. Like it's a lot more similar to sports too, just in that mindset where you have like a big sports team and they can just kind of do internal scrimmages between all the players, so everyone gets better, even the players that are on the bench and who aren't playing as much. So when you need them, your main player gets injured or he's just not feeling it that week, which can very, very well happen. You can send someone else in to take their spot, and it's really not much of a hit, and it might even be a benefit against certain opponents. So it's a lot different to other esports like CSGO or something, where you have the same people playing every single week. It's just a big cohesive unit of people who can be thrown in at any time, which is much different. I mean,
this is new in esports. We've
So
never
new.
really had this.
It's unique.
That I can ever think of. There's no other team game I can think of where people switch in and out. So kind of cool.
It's gonna be
It's
awesome.
definitely cool.
Hey, so, well, you were mentioning that not everybody's here yet. At least moved in yet. Is Tyrong there already?
No, Tyrong.
Okay.
So both our coaches aren't here yet, and our Europeans are not here yet. So like there's really no way to scrim right now. So we're just handling what we need to handle.
Have you gotten a chance to interact with Tyrong much? Like, how is he so far as a coach? Do you anything or no?
I haven't really gotten like much coaching from him, but I mean, as a person, I think he's really, really funny. Interacting with him, Discord and stuff.
That's
For
always
sure.
a plus.
I don't know if you've seen him on Twitter
for a reason.
I don't know if you've seen his starboard, but and on Twitter he's really funny.
Yeah,
I'm excited. And he knows everyone. He has like a mutual respect for everyone because he has that TF2 background. He actually, it's really funny. Flame used to design HUDs in TF2, and Tyrong said something about his HUD when we first got into contact with him or whatever. Without coaching, it was like, "Oh, Flame HUD," or it's just really funny. I don't know. It's just
did he used to use it?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. All right.
Yeah. So
that's funny.
He has like an understanding of everyone on the team and like what our potential is, what we're capable of.
Cool.
So.
Awesome. Well, I mean, congrats on getting into OWL. It's going to be super exciting, and I think you guys are going to be one of the fan favorites too. So it's going to be great to see how you guys end up doing this first season. But why don't we move on to some other topics? Given that we've interviewed you for almost an hour now, it's definitely been great, though. I'm
really
happy.
not that. I'm not that interesting. So we should probably move on.
You are.
I'm trying to scrape my
you don't
brain
give
for
yourself
some
enough credit. Man.
Look, when I woke up from my allergy medicine related coma, I rushed to my computer because I did not miss I did not want to miss this interview.
I know, dude. I missed you, man. I missed you for so long.
We tried our best
I
to
just
carry.
find the entire topic interesting because
Yeah.
you were sort of like someone that I used as an example for a lot of stuff for a long time. Where just like, look, here's a player that's coming in, like, basically where do old school players come in? I think you've had like this really cool story of like, some downs at the beginning, but some great ups. So thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. It's fun, man.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about a big discussion that's been happening lately, which is the whole one trick. I guess I'm calling it one trick dilemma here. And, we've been hearing it obviously off and on for the last, months now in terms of Mercy and things like that. But something happened this week that I think was a little bit different, and I think it's worth discussing again, which is Blizzard posted a few things. And I think the very first one was the one that was a little bit like, whoa, like jarring, because they basically had a post that was just saying that people were getting banned for one tricking, or at least one tricking is not allowed. It really had that kind of context to it. They then posted again that one tricking is actually, if you only play one hero, it's perfectly fine. Like, don't worry, you'll be okay. Just play nice. They were trying to get that kind of sentiment over. So for me, and I think a lot of the community, people are just confused as to what you can and can't do now. Clearly, there are going to be people that don't have time to really be good at more than one hero. But at the same time, you kind of have to be good at more than one hero to be able to flex for your team, or if your team asks you to change and you're playing nice, right? So what's y'all's take on this? Because I feel like this is the most confused, or maybe even fearful. So like the overall player pool might be at this point, whether they get banned or not, just for doing what they normally do.
We don't have the information we need is the problem here. I don't want to like go out on a stump and talk about lofty like philosophies about how this should be done and how Blizzard is screwing it up, because we don't really know how Blizzard's doing it at all. This all basically blew up. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not even that knowledgeable on the whole situation. But this all blew up because one person, Fui, got banned. To my knowledge, this is like how it hit this
correct. Torbjorn main.
Yeah, he's a Torbjorn main.
Mm-hmm.
He got banned, but he could have been banned for many reasons. He could have been reported for in every single game because he's being toxic, because he's actually purposely throwing, because he's actually doing more than just picking Torbjorn. I don't really know, and I don't think most people really truly know like the actual reason why Blizzard decided to ban them. I would say I would never expect Blizzard to actually ban one tricking. Like, I don't think we're ever going to get to the point where you can legitimately be banned for one tricking. I think there has to be some element of bad behavior, of toxicity that gets you reported. I don't know like for sure, but I mean, that's just how I think things are probably unfolding.
So my point of view is that Blizzard kind of has put themselves in a little bit of a corner here, just because you have the general gameplay philosophy of play what you want, but then you also have heroes that are very much specialist heroes in the game that aren't all purpose, that will, like, as you go up in competitiveness, make the people you play with angry if you play them in clearly suboptimal situations where, you throw things aside here, people go, okay, the meta is always evolving. Sure. But there's certain hero designs that frankly do not lend themselves to certain things in the game. In this case, you have your builder heroes, right? Your Symmetra and your Torbjorn that historically are not geared towards attack. I mean, it's not really how turrets work. It's not how those heroes go. Mm-hmm. And you have a case where one tricking those heroes is going to generate a lot more ire from the people you play with than someone who one tricks a more specialist hero, or sorry, more general hero like a 76 or a Lucio, or, well, I guess any support hero, because there's just not that many supports. So there is a tension there, and part of it is just from the gameplay scenario where specialist heroes aren't really meant to be played all the time, and you're always going to upset people if you play them in roles that they really weren't intended to be played in.
Yeah, I agree a lot with what CP was saying. I mean, I think it's a really huge pivot for Blizzard to like just start banning one tricking. That's why I sort of agree. Like, I feel like I don't know if we'll ever get to that point, but if we do, it hinges a lot on the fact that there are some heroes that are okay to one trick. Like if you play Diva during Diva meta and you only play Diva, if you're a good player, you're not going to get reported for one tricking.
Yeah, you could be like Cool Matt, you know?
You could be cool. Cool Matt literally played Diva last season and got to like rank like 6.
He also basically one tricks in competitive play as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Actual tournaments. So
Yeah.
and it works out.
Yeah, so Diva, for instance, is a very good hero in almost every single situation. There are a few times where if you're not playing Diva optimally, that you should switch off to something else. But Symmetra, for instance, is a very niche hero, and if you play it in a situation where she might not be good, that people are going to want that to be bannable, but they don't want Diva to be bannable. So it's like a very volatile situation.
Yeah, I mean it's tough because like there's nowhere where they actually say or require you to be able to be good at more than one hero. Yet it's designed for you to be flexible in a way. To be able to build comps with just how the matchmaking's made. So yeah, I think that's where it's going to be really, really tricky for them. And I don't know if it's going to get to the point where it is kind of a very big problem. I don't think it's quite there yet, but it's something that's always just going to be there. So I don't know if it's like try to steer some of these people to deathmatch or try to steer them away from the actual comp ladder and things like that, or if I don't know, they'll have to maybe build some type of progressing structure where you have to actually be good at more than one character to be able to get to master and GM levels or something like that.
You also
something.
You had one really important point there, which was the idea of like where does skill level come to play, right? Because we sort of reference the specialist heroes where there's a more defined setup, but the reality for your sniper heroes, your Widow and Hanzo, is that whether or not people accept you being a main of that character depends on your skill level in the game relative to everyone else that's in the game, because those heroes are very binary by nature, right? Where if you have a flower level talent, you pretty much show that you can play Widow regardless of what's getting thrown at you, right? Where you can just crush everyone if your skill level is that high. Whereas, the average person is obviously going to have ups and downs, and those heroes are very binary, where you're either generally crushing or you're getting crushed. So is it right to punish, say, someone for being a Widow one trick in a game where they have half their games that they're doing incredibly well and half their games that they just do bad in like anyone else, but it's just so much more apparent when a Widow is being bad versus, say, a Soldier or a Tracer where it's a little bit more variable?
Yeah. It's definitely hard because that's why I think a lot of people are going for where they want the community to have their own say in things, I guess. More of like an outlaw outlook on it, where like there's no like real governmental system, right? Like it's just a bunch of players that are like, I don't like what you're doing, go to low priority queue or something. That's why it's always been an idea that's been tossed around, right? Because that's what happens in Dota. You're like throwing or you're trolling or you're not picking a good hero in Dota. Enough people get annoyed and they're like, I don't want you in my games anymore. And they report you enough and you get low priority queue and then you have to work your way out. And I think that's like a solution, but is it really the best one?
Well, I mean, that's the thing. Like, people are not necessarily throwing when they do that. That's where it's a conflicting thing.
Exactly.
That's just how they are. It's like, it's definitely an issue that it's very difficult to fix. And I'm really curious to see what they end up doing. Hopefully they do something. I just don't know exactly what the most elegant fix is for something like this. But this is just going to be something that just keeps popping up, and I'd like them to at least try to attempt to do something about it.
I would say one thing that would probably be a step in the right direction. Note that not everyone who falls in the category of like one trick is in this category, but you do have the idea of individual performance-based SR, which is well known now, and how it enables someone who's playing a lesser played hero like a Torb or Symmetra to stay at higher ranks with a sub 50% win rate because they're playing better, like they're getting judged against other Torbjorns and Symmetras, right? I think lessening that impact greatly or doing something to, I guess, recognize that these heroes aren't quite as good and not giving them like the benefit of the doubt for playing better again relative to other heroes would probably be a start. Because there's something to be said where, say you have a Tracer, right? Where Tracer for a long time now has been one of the very best heroes to carry with, etc. Outperforming 70% of other Tracers at a high skill level when there's so much competition is probably going to be more difficult than outperforming 70% of other Torbjorns at the same skill level when the pool of people that are maining Torb is so low. So at some level, the SR system probably needs to value wins, like win rate above all else, and sort of eke away from the
that's like a whole nother discussion too.
It is, but it also is a big part of the one-trick debate.
That's true. It is. I know it is related to an extent.
It ties in a lot too, because it's not even like having the best stats is even you playing the best way you possibly can. You know, there's definitely times when sacrificing your life or going for a risky play.
Absolutely,
is better.
Or switching when you have ult, or
exactly. But you get punished for it because you get ranked against people who are like trying their hardest to just make sure their damage and their KD is as high as it possibly can be.
Yeah, because if you're a soldier player, right, you're not rewarded for going, oh, this guy's playing a little bit aggro, I'm going to go suicide helix rocket him, take him out, like say it's a Mercy that's a little bit aggro. Because even if you win the fight and end up winning the game, you've done way less than the guy that was hiding in the back and goes, I'm just going to wait for someone else to make a play, because getting cleanup is giving you a lot more performance than getting the initial kill. And that's a problem.
Okay, well, you know, hopefully they'll do something about it. I'm sure it's going to come up again at some point down the road on this show. But why don't we move on to PTR, given that we've seen a little bit more PTR. You know, just Moira and Mercy last time we had a show, like, had just literally came out. So none of us had really gotten a chance to experience it that much. But now it's been a week. You know, we saw, you know, an event over the weekend too, you know, where we had some games that actually ran on the PTR. Clockwork, have you gotten a chance to try out Moira and the Mercy changes, or
no, not really?
Have you gotten a chance to see it at all? Like, I was wondering if you had any thoughts on it.
A little bit, for sure. I don't know. It's really hard to say, right? As soon as things start to be used in scrims, like that's when you can really tell how useful something's going to be. But like when you're using it in PTR, it's really just hard to even know if it's the best option. I wasn't really able to scrim with Moira at all, so I know teams are probably scrimming with them now, right?
I would assume so.
Like Arden and Owl.
Yeah.
So
it should be coming out in a week and a half or so. I mean, it's pretty. I would assume it's going to be pretty close before it's out on production.
I mean, it looks like an interesting hero in the sense that there's definitely like a lot of mechanics to it. Yeah. So that's like kind of interesting. You definitely want your supports to have a lot of mechanics that, you know, allows you to actually feel like you're performing and doing well in the game while also playing support. It's like the Ana mindset.
Yeah.
Where you have to aim and you have to hit your shots, but you're also healing. So
you're doing both. Yeah, exactly. Ben and DP, like, do you guys notice anything this weekend, like in terms of what we did see with some of the pros playing it?
Mercy still feels damn strong, I'll say.
Yeah.
I mean, it's much more difficult for her to res when she doesn't have her ult, but it's certainly still possible. And her ult is so freaking good. Like, it just makes the fact that her res res on cooldown isn't as good anymore kind of just even emphasizes how strong her ult is even more so, because it's not just the 2 reses, it's the chain healing to everyone. That's basically like a half. It's basically like half of a transcendence plus being able to res twice. It's just insanely good. So Mercy still definitely doesn't feel like she's underpowered. I was trying to get reactions out of ZP and other casters about Moira during the thing, but I don't know. I think Moira's already in an okay spot. I mean, one thing we did notice is that we kept seeing the Moira players getting like 16,000 healing in a game. Like the Moira players were actually getting the most healing out of any supports that we've like ever seen. So it certainly seems possible to heal your team. Yeah, I think Custa got like 17,000 healing once, which was pretty nuts. So I don't know. I like theory crafting. We don't know much yet. I think Moira is in an okay spot. I still have questions though whether she's going to be, any better than a Zenyatta and Mercy, which just seems to be like the combo right now. It's hard to say. I don't know.
Moira, well, she seems like she's very good. Well, two things. One, she's a very good neighbor with other heroes in terms of setting up combos where in terms of cleanup going into a fight, she gives you a lot more oomph power that you don't usually get from a support. The idea of, I have a Graviton up. Oh, you can Moira ult. That should be enough for an Earth Shatter or anything like that. So it's definitely more aggressively themed support, especially in follow through and combination abilities. I would say that she definitely did seem to excel as we thought in, more ground and pound comps where you run more tanks than usual, you sort of roll into the other team, you brawl it out, right? Because she's a support that can actually get in the thick of things with the other tanks and doesn't really have to worry about people diving in on her. Her escape options are incredibly good. Her self-healing when people dive on her is very good. I would say her biggest threat is probably going to be from heroes like Widow and McCree, heroes that can burst her down from a mid-range without really caring as much. She seems like she's going to be really good against teams that want to run the old school full dive, where I don't know if you would want to run, say, Genji, Tracer, Winston into her, for example, where I think she could just get out of that and really shake pressure. So if nothing else, I wonder if we're just going to hit the era here where the support a team likes running also kind of dictates what the optimal composition to run into them is, because I feel like in general, her being around might just be a nerf to dive period as time goes on.
Yeah, I mean, what does a duel between Moira and Tracer look like right now? Is it really bad one direction, or like I wonder if
if you have your E up as Moira, you're in a pretty good spot.
Right.
I mean, Tracer's got to be scared of that shit. I don't think you're going to be able to, you're not going to be able to kill a good Tracer, but I don't think Tracer isn't going to be able to kill you fast enough. Given that you have the E, you can use it to self heal. You can use it to
right click
do damage to the
too. So
the right click heals. And so like all of those things put together make it so Tracer's not going to be wanting to dive and focus her energy on someone that she's probably not going to be able to kill, at least not quickly.
Yeah, I mean that's how you pretty much counter Tracer, right? Like you don't really expect to kill her unless you're playing like McCree or something. You can burst her down really quick. You just want to do enough damage to her where she feels like she has to leave. And that's, all you have to do is hit like 2 headshots when you're playing Soldier and she has to rewind or blink out, hit like an orb as Zen and she has to leave. So the goal is never really to burst her down and kill her, but as long as you can annoy her and put her into a position where she has to run away or play safer, then you've pretty much won the fight, for that entire cycle. She has to wait for her cooldown to come back. So you have a safe 10 or so seconds, position yourself.
Okay. Yeah.
I think the way I would start categorizing this, and I'm trying to think about, casting wise, how do you discuss comps people are going with, is that you sort of have your high risk, high reward supports in a theory with your Annas and Zenyatas, right? Where Ana and Zenyatta don't have any escape options, but they have really powerful tools to use, where Ana had, still has really high healing throughput with her grenade, sleep dart, nano boost, which I mean, arguably nano boost could probably get buffed a little bit or something. It's definitely probably one of the more lackluster support ultimates, but either way, I'd still say Ana is sort of high risk, high reward, also requires a lot of skill. Then you have Zenyatta, who's sort of the definition of high risk, high reward, where he can't really get out of things, but he has lots of damage to back things up with Discord Orb, etc. But his healing is a little bit less. Moira is sort of in the category of, supports where there's not a lot of risk in running her. You could put her pretty much everywhere. She has pretty good healing, but you're not getting the offensive options or the niche options that you get from some of the other supports. So it's interesting because now you could start sort of classifying into this, and you really want this support versus comp, or you really want that support versus this other comp, and get more swapping mid game, which I think was one of the main goals that devs always wanted.
Okay, so I think the most important question to ask, in terms of Moira, particularly UZP, since you're casting, is how are you going to not say golden showers and, golden mist when you're casting Moira? I mean, Jason was Jason and Mitch were non-stop saying it in the very first game.
Jason dragged Mitch into the abyss. Mitch would not have said that if Jason did not open up with it, where Mitch was clearly not enthusiastic, but it's look, it's out there, whatever. I don't know. I would just say I was gonna say toxic spray or something. I mean,
Toxic spray.
Toxic spray.
But it's a heal. What are you talking about? It's not even
well,
toxic.
okay, whatever. She's spraying out whatever the good stuff is that Roadhog has. It also looks toxic. Yeah, let's call it whatever it is. But yeah, you don't have to call it that particular term. I feel like that's an easy problem to rectify. That's all I'm saying.
All right. Okay, why don't we go into some news here? We've got a few things. First off, it's kind of a cool thing, just at least from a community standpoint, is that our Overwatch subreddit or Overwatch subreddit has gone over 1 million subscribers, which is a pretty huge milestone, given that I believe there's only one other game community that's gone over 1 million, which is League of Legends. So I feel like it was just like the other day, it was like 700,000, and now it's freaking like 1 million. This is incredible.
Well, it's super exciting because of Owl coming around, right?
Yeah.
So like, hopefully, if Owl does this job and it gets these people more interested in competitive, that's huge. Because I know it was a big topic of debate a while ago when the first competitive Overwatch subreddit came around. Everyone was like, "Oh, but you're creating a divide, right? Like between the community, between casual players and competitive, where you really want it to be more of a bridged community. You know, you don't really have like our competitive League of Legends. You just have our League of Legends. So hopefully now, Owl will introduce these people to comp, and you can see a lot more competitive news on the subreddit.
It's already happening. We've talked about this probably a dozen times on the show. Maybe more. And one of the things we always said is, don't worry, once Owl comes around, we're going to start seeing it. And it's actually true. It's already happening. I don't know if you guys remember. Well, obviously Clockwork remembers, but the week and a half, 2 weeks leading up into BlizzCon, it was literally every single day. It was new roster announcements, new brands being revealed. Obviously, having the team skins as part of that helps bridge that divide. But every single one of those was getting pretty high up on our Overwatch, the main subreddit. Obviously, the World Cup was constantly up there during BlizzCon. It's BlizzCon, so that's like not a great example. But I think these are all really encouraging signs. We've already seen Overwatch esports make a huge have a huge presence on the main subreddit. Having the skins has really helped with that. It's happening. It's already happening, especially with the new spectator mode. I can't tell you how, I'm trolling through Reddit comments all the time. I can't tell you how many comments were like, I've never enjoyed watching Overwatch esports. I'm now a fan. I'm sold. Like, I can't wait for OWL. So you saw a ton of that in these last couple of weeks, which is, it bodes well. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's definitely bodes well. It's super exciting because, everyone's always worried about Twitch viewership. And the World Cup game got how many viewers? Like
over 300,000.
Over 300,000.
On day one.
So,
and which is way more than the opening ceremony viewership, by the way, too. Before people go into it's just opening ceremony. It's like, nope. We had really good numbers on day 2 as well.
It's hours after it too that it maxed out. So you can't at least point to that in that direction this time around. So it's really exciting. I mean, our cow is even at 121,000, which is like freaking awesome too.
That's a lot. I expected it to be a lot lower than that, but yeah.
So definitely a growing community, and hopefully we can see it. Let's beat League of Legends, guys. That'd be pretty amazing to actually see that.
Yeah.
Okay, next bit of news is we actually had some national support from, like the government or the politicians from the standpoint of the World Cup. So the French politician, I don't want to totally massacre his name, when they had their assembly, he actually gave a shout out to the French Overwatch team, and just how they finished in the World Cup. So that's really cool. I mean, leading up to the World Cup, I feel like France as a country were doing like these very national type of promotions of the French team, whether it was in the news or even there was like even some campaigns and things that were for it. And that was like incredible to see. But this is like even another thing where they're actually recognized during a political, just in the political circles there. So, you know what? It'd be nice to see a French team at some point in the Overwatch League. Hopefully we'll see that, in the near future, season 2 or whatever. But I don't know. I think it's just really great. I mean, can you imagine if like Trump said something about the U.S. team. I mean, that would be crazy.
I mean, it
Crazy
bodes
cool.
well for like a Paris team, right? Like,
Yeah, I don't think so.
Paris
Let's
ever
hope
gets
so,
to
man.
do that
There's
really
certainly
well.
enough talent.
Yeah, for sure. Next bit of news here, we've got the competitive Overwatch subreddit. They did their team rankings, and I figured it would be a good time for us to maybe see how our team rankings match theirs. So let me bring it up real quick. And this was basically composed of a lot of people, giving their feedback, and then somebody just made this graph, which is kind of hard to understand at first because of just how it's made. But basically, we've got let's see, who do we have first here? Shoot, it's kind of small on my screen. Maybe one of you guys can read it out here. We've got is it the?
So what, I'm actually not sure. Was this like done democratically? It's just like based on votes or something?
Yeah, no, well, it's not votes. It's just like I think people gave like a bunch of their opinions as to what their rankings were, and then this was just compiled. So this type of range and ranking. So it's kind of split up into different tiers, I would say. But you can kind of see just how it played out here. Let me actually blow it up on my other screens because that's getting hard for me to see this image because it's kind of small on this right now. Okay, so anyways, we have the London Spitfire as the people have as the number one. Looks like the Seoul Dynasty is like really, really close too. Just both of those being kind of the 1 and 2 teams. Dallas Fuel third. The New York Excelsior fourth. We've got Fusion Valiant kind of in the same range there. The Outlaws, you guys, in the same range, but a little bit lower than those other two. And then we've got another tier, which is more the Florida Mayhem, bigger range there. And then the LA Gladiators, Shanghai Dragons being the 10th team. And then we got the Shock and the Uprising kind of finishing it. Uprising looks like it's last by quite a bit too. So okay, let's see how you guys feel about it. Do you guys agree with this? Do you guys disagree? Where do you guys disagree? I would think the Houston Outlaws would be a big disagreement right here, at least from Clockwork's standpoint.
I'll let Clock go first, but
I mean, yeah, I think we're definitely. The New York Excelsior, especially, you don't really know how well they're going to be doing, right? That team hasn't competed they haven't played Apex, right? And wow, you don't even know.
They skipped like last.
They are relative, to other teams at this point. Metas have changed, people got better, whatever. So it's hard to really rank them. I think that we could definitely be higher. I think it's weird that I'm trying to blow it up, and every time I blow it up, my mouse click just brings it back.
Well, you copy the image, then address and bring it up there. But while you're fixing that, I will say what you are probably going toward there is that why would you have Valiant so high when Immortals got absolutely wrecked in the last contender season? That makes no sense. Valiant has a lot of stuff to fix between when we last saw them and now, and I definitely would not have them high up on a ranking until we saw that they fixed the issues they had, which were plentiful. I mean, Immortals got wrecked in season 1, and it wasn't a very good season for them. The other thing I'd say there is that I think Dallas Fuel is getting slipped on a little bit here, where even though I expect both London and Seoul to be pretty good, I don't think there's any reason to not have the Fuel as one of your absolute best teams going into it.
Yeah, they're top 2 for me, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think they could definitely beat either of the Korean teams. I would put them as a strong favorite. I think they might be the best team. And I think it's just kind of the way the community works, right? They always kind of attach themselves to prior conceptions of teams. So Immortals, for instance, even though they didn't really do that well during contenders, everyone kind of has their own idea of how good they are. It was the same way with Rogue. Rogue didn't really do well at all during contenders, and everyone still has them as one of the best teams in the world.
Right.
So I think it's just sort of how people's minds work. They just kind of get attached to what it was before. They don't really keep up to date. But
yeah, so where do you see the Outlaws? Where do you see yourself here? Just come on, just throw it out there.
Yeah,
where do you see
I think we could be. I think we're I think we could easily be top 4. If not, I would say at least the 5 to 6 range. Immediate, perception.
Instantly, okay.
I think that I think it's weird just having Excelsior so high without really knowing how well they're going to do. I think as a team on FNRGFE, we always did really well against the Fuel or Envy at the time.
Mhm.
So I think that should show that people,
Yeah, you guys
with
took
new additions and an actual sponsor and some backing, that we could definitely do a lot better than we should.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, you guys took a map off them at Contenders, right? In the,
We were
semis.
No,
really
pushed them even more
close.
than that. Yeah, they were close
We were
games.
really close
Yeah.
at LAN. Yeah, we should have won Oasis. We should have. I hate to say like we should have won, because everyone should have won. We should have won, but I think Effect just kind of killed our whole team at the end. We were actually going to win Oasis, and then Effect killed our entire team. So
He's pretty good.
I would say when I look at this, the biggest things that strike out to me, I do agree that I think like the bottom for Outlaws is probably 6, but they very easily could jump up to 4 or higher. I would say, looking at this here, aside from Valiant, which definitely should be lower from what we've seen, I think Shanghai is potentially getting slept on here. I definitely would not put them below a lot of the teams that they're below right now. I think I would say Excelsior and Shanghai are both sort of my X factors where I don't really know where they can go. I would say on this list, I could see Shanghai going a lot higher than they're currently pegged at. I could see New York going a lot lower. Philly is going to be interesting in terms of where they go. I also think, Philly also has the entire thing of like, holy crap, can you get a visa for Shadowburn in time? Like there's interesting parts of the Philly roster, just seeing how quickly it comes together. So they're sort of in the ether for me in terms of, could they finish top 6? Possibly. Could they finish pretty poorly? It's possible. I also think Mayhem might be a little bit overrated here, where I think Florida has really put themselves in a bit of a hole. They don't have depth on their roster right now.
They have 6 players, right?
Yeah, they have 6 players. So it's sort of like, I don't think that's a great look going into OWL. I think that especially if coaches are smart about swapping things up and analyzing teams, Florida could be setting themselves up for a lot of hurt here because of how they've handled their rosters. So I think Florida has the potential to drop even lower than where they're at in this list right now.
You got to remember though, after the first stage, I believe the rumor is that they're going to open up signings, right? I don't think it's been officially confirmed, but I 100% like Mayhem is going to sign more people. Like there's just no way.
But you don't want to.
It seems like an accident.
But
now that they can't plan around it now, they have to sign a bunch of people. Like that's not a great idea.
You don't want to you don't want to go in for like the first few months and not do well, and then have like a lot of tension in the roster, and then bring like new people in. It just doesn't really work that way. There's going to be even more tension if there's new people.
It's bad culture for sure. Yeah. I man, ZP, you pretty much were saying all the things I was thinking too. I feel like Mayhem for me is like bottom 3 for me. I think Shanghai is probably at least swapped with Florida. I think a lot of people just don't know anything about the Shanghai Dragons, but I don't know what I've seen from China. When they have their 100% their team and not substitutes and things, we've seen good things from them. So I at least think it would warrant middle of the pack here, and maybe even better. Who knows?
Can anyone tell me why the Shanghai Dragons aren't just the Miraculous Youngsters squad?
I don't know. That's another
there's
question.
Actually, not a single of MY is on that team, right?
No, I think there's at least one.
Is there? I
thought
can't
there
see it
was.
right now.
Well, the issue is there's kind of a lack of insiders on the Chinese scene. Like, obviously, you have people that watch a lot of OWPS and cast that, but that's not giving you any insight into the inner politics of what's going on there. Where, I mean, maybe I'm wrong and someone really does know what's going on, but I've yet to meet anyone that really knows the inner workings of what's going on there, just because there is such a cultural barrier, language barrier, and getting solid info on, I guess, the inner workings of how Shanghai is handling things.
Yeah, Miraculous Youngsters could have had, the people who made it onto the roster could have wanted to play with these players for a long time, and maybe they were blocked in by their organizations or whatever it was, and they finally have a chance now to branch out.
Well, MY's my pick for Contenders season 2, dude.
Yeah, totally
insane. Actually, Runaway is still in that, huh?
No, Runaway should be due. But
Runaway and MY.
MY will compete for sure. But you have to remember, guys, the World Cup team did well too in the group stages. And that was pre-subs too, and I don't think that was MY players either. So there's a plethora of great Chinese players. It's just, none of us know about them, so we're obviously gonna rate them pretty low. Yeah, but I pretty much agree with a lot of what you said, ZP. So I think the Fusion are probably properly rated. That's the only thing I'd say. Like, obviously Shadowburn being signed or not, but I think the Fusion actually looked pretty decent or pretty good too.
Why is the same color used for Dynasty and Uprising?
I don't know. I got mixed up with that.
I got very confused.
I was
like,
holy shit, I was like, wait, what? Spitfire.
Why do they have Dynasty last?
Yeah, exactly.
The one thing I'd reiterate though is that Fuel is definitely underrated here. There's I would put Fuel on the same tier as any top team in the game. So I would not put like London or Seoul like significantly over Fuel or really necessarily over Fuel at all. So that part there is, I don't know why Fuel's getting underrated there. They haven't really given anyone any reason to underrate them, and they think they look stronger over time. I'll come back to
give me the ZP analysis on the Boston Uprising.
Oh no. Oh god.
I guess what I'd say about Boston, and that actually just reminded me of the point I was going to get to here, is that I think it's telling that Philly was able to put together a roster that on paper looks like it's at least going to be middle of the pack, when from all accounts, Philly had some of the least amount of time to build their roster. They were one of the last adds into the league, and they really had to scramble to go for players that weren't tapped yet. And Boston was a team that had the most time to build their roster. They were one of the earliest signs. Like, we know that they were putting the management structure in place very early into the process, and Boston wasn't able to sign a lot of the sort of obvious picks that Philly was able to bring onto their roster. And that seems like a mistake on the Boston side of things, because look, I mean, obviously there could be reasons like budgetary concerns, maybe they didn't have that much money or whatever it might have been. But even still, there's definitely players that are out there that they missed on that aren't in OWL at all. For example, like you have your AKMs of the world, and I'm pretty sure AKM would have signed for the minimum if need be.
Yeah.
And he's not on the roster, and you just sort of look at it and go, I don't understand. And that's just sort of how I look at the Boston roster. I look at the time they have, how teams like Philly were able to sign a lot of good players late into the game, and I look at it, I'm just sort of like, I don't understand.
Well, Buds too, right?
Say.
Yeah,
Buds is a good example. I think he could have easily been on.
I mean, there are probably
like
24 players.
Ben has a spreadsheet full of players that probably would have signed for. Speaking of which, do you think it would have been smart to sign for the minimum? Like, if you're AKM,
it depends. Like,
it's a 2-year kind of contract, right? Is that good or bad? I mean, I'm wondering if that would even been smart to do that. I guess it's better to be on it than not be on it, like with the risk involved right now. Okay, Ben, any comments? I mean, you pretty much agree with this list?
I haven't said much. I mean, I mainly agree with. I think I agree with most of this list.
Yeah.
I actually like not just saying this because you got Clockwork on the show, but I actually really do believe in this Outlaws squad.
I do too.
Jake seriously impressed me at the World Cup. Like, I know it's the World Cup, it's a totally different setting, but wow, he just is such a smart player, and he couldn't stop talking about how he thinks Cool Matt is maybe the best player in the entire game. Like,
Cool Matt is so good, dude.
Cool Matt is amazing. I played multiple games with Cool Matt. He's freaking unbelievable. But like I agree with that statement as well. Like, Spree is like such a good player to have like as a potential backup player. Like, Rockets played super well at the World Cup. I've been a Linkser fanboy for years before this game came out from Dirty Bombs. So like, I do think that this team actually is pretty insane. I don't really disagree with too much in this. But I think it's a lot. Sorry?
Do you agree with the ranking of Valiant on that list?
Oh, no, I don't. They made some late signings, right? I forget exactly who it was.
Unco, right?
Unco and Soon.
The two rogue guys, the two rogues.
Yeah, they're good pickups, but
I
mean, to really say those pickups would be like the difference between them performing well and not performing well, the contenders, is definitely up in the air. So.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll see how the power rankings. We'll probably have another show. Well, I mean, we'll probably have to do maybe some modified ones. Who knows? By the time the regular seasons come, but midway through, it'll be interesting to see how things turn out, and who people pick up. It might just be like literally the Florida Mayhem draft that happens midway through the season. Who knows? But it'll be good to see if any of these predictions are correct or not.
I would reiterate one thing here is that in terms of like the craziest movement in terms of surprising people, I would say New York right now probably has the biggest chance to underperform where people think they're going to go. And I would say Shanghai has the biggest chance to outperform people's expectations.
Okay.
Between the two.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is something that I think most of us took part in this weekend, which was a tribute to a friend of ours, Dennis Hulk, aka InternetHulk, that a lot of you probably know now that watch this show or in the Overwatch community. We actually lost him on like this past Wednesday. So very shocking news to just the entire community. But the community was able to, especially with Ben and ZP here, as well as Nuki, was able to get together this event in like a matter of a day or two. And we had this Hulktastic Cup just as a tribute that had a lot of the pro players playing in it, and some of them kind of throwing back to some of their old teams, just as a way to honor Dennis. And we were raising money also for the family, for his family, and man, the community came out in a super huge way, and we ended up raising over $25,000, which is, that like was way, just totally blew my mind. Just had that.
Just
that
about
we got
$27,000.
At 27
the last count. Which
yeah, it was
incredible.
Just incredible. But I would just say like the overall, just just the community coming out and doing this, just participating and really contributing to it. It just shows you how amazing this community is, and when we can do something like that for one of our own. And it's touching. I don't want to get all cheesy and like Bible thump or whatever, but it makes me proud to be part of this community whenever we can do something like this. And it was really, I just was happy to be able to take part in the event. And I know ZP and Ben, you guys had more of a part in organizing it, so kudos to you guys too.
Yeah, it was amazing that the community just rallied together in such a powerful way. It's the internet. You're going to see a lot of shitty stuff, but like none of that was there. Like people were just there to show their support. And I think one of the things that amazed me the most was, I've met Dennis quite a few times. I had met Dennis quite a few times. A lot of people had played with him, had met him at LANs. But everyone, even the casual fans, had a pretty good understanding of just how important this guy was to the scene. And like the things that people had to say about him, there's so many common threads to pull there that it felt to me like even your everyday fan felt like we did about Dennis, and knew kind of like who he was as a person. So it was an honor to be part of it. I was really, really glad to be part of that. And it was awesome to see the community rally, but rallying for all the wrong reasons, for the right reasons, but it was great to see the community come together, but also probably like the hardest death I've ever had to deal with in my life. I've lost some grandparents, but those were at least expected, so it's a little bit easier. I've heard what they say, when it's really sudden, it's a lot harder to deal with, and especially when he's so young. So it was tough, but it was good to see people come together,
especially when a lot of people had seen him like at TwitchCon, and I saw him back in 10 actually. Then,
he was at TwitchCon 2 weeks before that.
Yeah, we were
crazy.
We were hanging out outside. Remember outside the restaurant, Ben?
Yeah,
we were totally hanging out with them. So it's just, definitely crazy. ZP,
what more can you say, right? It's a case where Dennis had a huge impact on us all, and I know we all really went deep into our death stories for the tribute stream, and I think about it, there's stories that I still haven't even mentioned about him. Just the idea where
there's stories that should never be mentioned.
Well, I'm talking the good kind, not the like Dennis. Why have you done this, guy? But no, honestly, just the community coming together was something great to see, where it's a case where, as you mentioned, Ben, sometimes the internet is a hit or miss on, do we have dignity? Do we have class? And across the board, I mean, you couldn't have asked for a better event to help remember a person that was really just core to the Overwatch scene.
Yeah, we had like, how many people participated in it? Probably like 20 people, I think, maybe just on the broadcast itself. So that's not including the players. So a lot
That
of
was the most
people.
stressful day of production I have ever
I
had.
know, and
Like,
ZP was running the production. So man, serious, huge kudos to you, Andy, for that. That's like
so for you to know production stuff,
insane.
Norm,
Yeah.
usually you try and like preset all your overlays way ahead of time in response to like cameras and everything else. Having to
Yeah.
swap that out midway through for people that had like, very chaotic schedules but wanted to come in for a game to pay their tributes, I was losing my mind over the course of the day. But for all reasons, really, production wise, like emotional,
Yeah.
it was a day.
Oh, well, there's one little memory that I definitely want to bring up, just because of the last time that Dennis was actually on the show. And if you guys don't remember, he was on the show talking about his transition. Remember, he made his announcement about going to Rogue, and I found this picture, which I thought was funny. It's just of him, and it just like cracked me up, and I thought it might be good just to bring up again. But yeah. Anyways, we lost one of the good ones, guys, and I know that one thing that was announced was just that I think his service is going to be in the LA area. So I don't know, if a lot of the players were planning on going, but that's really cool of his family. I know his family was like incredibly touched by just the entire.
Did they announced the date details for it yet?
I didn't see a date.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything.
Yeah, but
well,
I know.
No, I'm just thinking about booking a flight. So that's those things are just like, I actually like don't want to get surprised and don't want to somehow not go to it.
It's just really nice, like how much the community contributed to him and his family, because he contributed so much to everybody, even just pro players. I mean, like I never played with him or anything, but whenever I saw him at an event, he had that presence, where like everything you said was important to him. Like he tried to reach out to everybody and get to know everyone, and he was hilarious, really funny, super charismatic, and he's definitely an awesome guy. So
yeah, just a rare spirit. So definitely definitely remember him, and hopefully people will be inspired by him just in the way he lived his life. So all right, let's see what else we have here. Okay, we got Q&A left here. We had some questions, given that we didn't go through any of them last week, so some of these are carryover. We got Dusty Crunkler. Oh, by the way, if you guys want to send in your questions, go ahead and do that at the overview at chanmanv.tv. But Dusty Crunkler has a question. Big fan of the show. Thanks for making it. If you have any casters on, could you ask them what it's like trying to be entertaining and loose while knowing there's thousands of people listening to them? Do they seek tips and counsel from other sportscasters like radio, personalities? Does Blizzard bring in other commentators and play-by-play guys to coach new talent, or do they just trust you guys to know what you're doing? So Clockwork, yeah. Does Blizzard do that? No, just kidding. So ZP, yeah. What do you guys think? What do you think about this?
Learn by doing. That's how we all did. That's how we all got here.
Right. Well, when it comes to broadcasting, it's really sort of you make your own path. One thing that, and I mean, I've gotten DMs to this extent, I sort of have to tell people is like, no, you have to put out content, do your own stuff. Is that being a broadcaster, there's no obvious career path like there is for other jobs in the world. It's not like you apply and go, I would like to intern as a broadcaster, and then I would like to just tell me what to do. You sort of have to make your own way, make your own content, and it is a competitive field where no one's going to hold your hand and tell you how to improve. You have to really look at yourself and review your broadcast, review your work, and improve it on your own. And obviously you can go to your peers for feedback, and a lot of us do, but it's sort of like at the end of the day, the biggest arbiter on what you're doing needs to be yourself, and you have to be your own harshest critic. The idea is like, how do you deal with the pressure of dealing with broadcasts where thousands of people are watching? Over time, you just become numb to it. I mean, you put out your best effort every day, but in a sense, it also is another day at the office where you're not, you get to a point where you're not thinking about how many people are listening on any given time. It's not something that really actively goes through your mind. You're broadcasting. People are going to be listening. It's as simple as that.
So has Blizzard had any of those training? Like, I know they've done like some type of like training summits or those type of things in Hearthstone. Have they done it at all in Overwatch or no? Like brought any of you guys in? Okay.
As far as it's gone Overwatch, not really. I mean,
Okay.
I would say Overwatch, due to its nature, has definitely attracted like some of the best, or like people that have really worked insanely hard to do it. So, I mean, you've already like set a really high standard in Overwatch from the get go, where there hasn't been a lot of here's how to do a broadcast. And even the people that are newer to it, like say Hex and I, who started in Overwatch broadcasting, I mean, we look to improve at all points. We do seek feedback from production people when it's there, but a lot of it is sort of self-taught and going, look, there's a lot of people that want to get into this game. How do we stay a step ahead of the curve so we, basically are always putting our best foot forward? So I don't know. I would guess what I'd say for Overwatch is that due to the nature of it being like such a popular game and so many people wanting to get in, it's already been the survivor games for broadcasters to some extent, where if you're coming in at a low level, like it's difficult to get up because no one's going to hold your hand.
That's going to be the next few emails, is like how to get into Overwatch casting. It's
make
a
content,
pretty tough
way
to get in there.
Go back to the early days when we were doing $100 cups every weekend. ZP was casting, doing production, and doing observing for 8 to 12 hours a day, both Saturday and Sunday, every weekend for months. Almost a year.
I remember your schedule. This is like ridiculous.
Period.
Like
that's the dedication that you need. And people who put that dedication in get there. I mean, when you and Hex were like casting every single weekend for the first year, I definitely got the Room on Fire, like Semler, Anders and Semler vibe from you guys, because that's exactly what they did too. They casted every online cup. They casted everything for like a year. And then all of a sudden, they're the premier casters in CS:GO. Or I don't know. I guess they're not anymore, but they were for a couple of years.
For a while.
Anyway.
And I do probably believe there's still opportunities, right? Where you look at how someone like Flame got into it, where even though it didn't, he ended up forking off to the GM route, like he did have a road to be a broadcaster if he wanted to. From what did he do? Made videos, analyst videos that were of a high quality that people enjoyed, and it built up a following, right? So it comes down to be your own harshest critic, make good content, and go from there. And I mean, also know your limitations, right? Like on some level, you have to have an in. Flame's in is that he did have connections with the previous pro scene, so he added authenticity to his analysis videos. Obviously, even though I don't think you have to be a GM level player necessarily to be a good analyst, if you don't have any other credentials, that helps, right? Like you need to make sure you have something there, where if you're just like a dude that's going in and goes like, I like Overwatch, I want to broadcast, but you do analysis videos and you have been in esports before and your top rating is like 2000, I think that would be difficult. The other thing I'd note here too is that on top of having an in, it's an investment of money as well, right? Where people judge you based on what they hear, what they see. If you're making content and you're doing the hard part, which is doing the work, but then you've messed up the easy part because you're using a $50 microphone and you're not encoding at a high level and like your game quality looks mushy and all the rest, you're not giving people a reason to really care about what you're doing. So, the little things matter quite a bit, and you have to have some like unique hook that makes people want to listen to you.
Right. Okay, let's see. The Me55 has a question, and I'll kind of ask you this, Clockwork. I have a question regarding betting, actually. I feel the other major sports get a huge chunk of their viewership from sports betting, since the game is much more interesting if you have money on one team or the other. I did see a link on one of Thorn's video leading to esports betting. What can you tell me about the current scene in regards to this? And do you think the OWL, let's see, it could make OW much more lucrative considering VODs are very accessible and stats can be tracked much more accurately than traditional sports? Your thoughts? So yeah, just generally betting in Overwatch League, or just Overwatch. Do you see that being important to the growth and
I
all
want
that
to say
good
one
stuff?
quick thing here. As my lawyer, as your fake internet lawyer, I advise you to not answer this question.
Okay.
I'm actually serious. I think that it's a topic that's really easy to answer in the wrong way and make people angry.
Yeah, I don't think it needs any form of betting, honestly.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
I mean, people thought CS:GO was going to die when they banned and took down all of those CS:GO betting websites. It 100% wasn't the case. The E-League CS:GO major was the biggest ever, and that was after the fact. I will say, as an American, can we just have sports betting be legal, please? Like, I would love to do it, but I don't because it's illegal where I live.
Right.
I just wish we would just get with the rest of the world, well, at least most of Europe, and just like legalize gambling in more ways. I know like gambling's not great for the kids and stuff like that, but I would do it. I would do it, and I'd make tons of money.
And they make tons of money, really. Okay. Sports expert over here. I don't think it needs it for sure. I mean, I think it would help it. I mean, why, I think when you create like an environment where there is like whether it's fantasy or it's betting, whatever it is, right? If there's an alternate reason to be interested in a sport or an esport, then of course that's going to add more interest just overall to it. So would it help it grow? Yeah, it would help it grow, but it doesn't need it though. And I mean, I feel like Blizzard's always had a big stance, and this comes because of my experience with, asking, whether it's Hearthstone team or whatever. It's like, hey, if I want to do an event, if I get sponsored by, this betting site or this, whatever fantasy site, is that okay? And generally they don't like that. So no. I would not be surprised if,
we've all seen the duct tape on like Fnatic jersey.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's true.
Oh, I remember that.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like, why do you have tape there? It's like, well, you know what website it's linking to.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Earwax. Better question for Clockwork. Res could be an enchantment. So, what do you think about Res? This is a kind of idea for Res. Res could be an enchantment. Buff a character for 10 to 30 seconds. If they die within the same time, they res instantly. What if Res was like that? This would add counterplay to ability. The game would have to have a visual indicator to show both teams who is buffed, but it would still be beneficial to kill a player that's ulting even if they are buffed just for the ult cancel, unlike a certain bubble that's just simply don't attack. Keep the current setup during Valkyrie and you res, the ability becomes a 2-person instant res. Okay, so I guess the Valkyrie would be the same, but what do you think about res being more of a, like something that's on a player instead of something where you just res a guy who's dead?
Yeah, I don't know. It might be better. I think the biggest problem with res is just that having an initial pick is so important in Overwatch, and then the fact that you can just negate it instantly, the res is really hard. That's why it's so hard when you're like playing matchmaking now. Usually you just be able to get a pick, and then you just move in and you win, right? But now you just get res instantly. It's like I think Mercy, I think res as an ult was okay. I really don't like it as much as a cooldown. I think what the angle that I would have liked to see with Mercy is to just make her more well-rounded as, utility-wise as a hero. So like Ana, for instance, has her nade, has heals. Zen has her Discord, but Mercy really just doesn't have anything. I mean, you can damage boost a player, but that's, you have to be in range or whatever. She doesn't really have much utility outside of actually healing. So just maybe to like add, I think a cleanse was a good idea that a lot of people had to her E, where you can cleanse Discord, you can cleanse debuff, stuff like that, and just keep her the same with res being an ult. I think that would have been better. I like the idea of only being able to res one person. I always thought res should have been that way because I think it's kind of silly. Yeah.
I totally
it's like one person, just one person at a time, at the very least, like, because being able to res multiple people is kind of, I think it causes a lot of problems. But I think her having a lot more utility, just in general, more movement, more ability to heal or to aid her teammates in ways that aren't just directly healing them, would be really beneficial. And then her ult just being, a res on one teammate wouldn't be a nerf if she had other aspects of her game that were more fine-tuned, I think.
I don't disagree. Like that if you add more dimensions to her and nerf her rezzing ability, she could be just as cool and fun. The one thing I will say, and I was trying to pry in when we had Jake on the show last week, a little bit more into this. It was like impossible to talk during that episode because Jake was just Jake was on fire, dude.
He is long-winded, man.
But yeah, I wanted to pry in and just like be like, look, I know. What do you think about the like Jake has been really, really critical of how Junkrat and Mercy have made ranked a not great experience. But we watched the World Cup and it was amazing. It was incredible. It was the best Overwatch we've ever seen, I think, by far. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't know what my point is here. I wanted to like pry Jake a little bit more on that, but like I don't know.
Maybe like at the highest level, is it really that big of a problem? I guess is maybe your
that's always like always the thing though, right? It's like that's why a lot of people get so frustrated with ranked, is that it's just not like applicable to the actual game. It's just such a different experience to when you're scrimming and when you're playing matches. You have like so many checks and balances and scrims and matches that would cause you to not die in a situation where you just die 100% of the time in matchmaking because you're not getting healed or like your tank is off, 100 miles away from you for no reason. Stuff like that happens all the time. So in matchmaking, Junkrat is just so good, right? Because your tanks don't play positionally.
I'm more pissed off about Orisa and Junkrat right now than I am about Mercy on ranked.
Orisa's pretty crazy.
I fucking hate playing against Orisa right now.
I can't believe we're actually saying those words. Orisa is crazy.
Orisa, here's the problem with Orisa is that it actually is the ultimate example of something that is really incredibly obnoxious in a pub game and not as anywhere near as bad in an organized game. Like the problem with her is that how shield tanks have worked in Overwatch up until Orisa became a thing was there's always a period where the shield goes down. No matter what, there has to be a period where you shoot the Reinhardt shield enough, he's going to have to back out, the shield is down for a while. You deal with the Winston, the bubble is a short lifespan, you can't have a bubble up at all times. Basically, Orisa sort of flips that on its head and goes, actually, feel free to have a shield up at all times. And it wasn't as big of a deal in the beginning and for a while because what's it called? It wasn't quite as good. Then it got buffed, but still was a big deal because if you do break through, Orisa's a sitting duck. Orisa, when combined with the current version of Mercy, has been a particularly rough mix for pub games because you have the situation where pubs are a lot worse at breaking shields and Cornet against them than a real competitive team is A. And then B, when you would eventually break through, you would hear heroes never die and Orisa would come back up. So I think the Orisa-Mercy combination in particular has been quite bad for ranked right now, but hopefully that will get fixed a bit by Mercy getting reined in.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think if you just up to the cooldown, or at least you just increase the cooldown, it probably would be fine. But what is it, like 6 seconds right now? It's insane, like how short it is.
Yeah. Plus, you can do the thing where you throw the shield up in the air. So you're
even crazier. This is the tip of the week from Clockwork.
Always shoot your Orisa shield up in the air first.
That's right. That's right.
There's nothing Clockwork likes more than people playing Orisa better in his pub games. Just be sure to use it against him when he goes to pub.
That's right.
I swear to God, nothing has tilted me more than Orisa recently. Anyway,
man. Eventually, she had to become a bigger. Exactly, she had to become. She had to have some impact on the game eventually, and I guess now is the time. But all right, guys, that's going to wrap things up for the show. Clockwork, man, it's definitely been worth the wait having you on, man. It's been a lot of fun having you, and hopefully you had some fun.
Yeah, it was fun, man. Thanks for having me.
Awesome.
Long awaited.
Yeah,
I've been waiting. I checked my inbox the first time you wanted me on the show, and then for the next year, I was just sitting there every day checking my emails.
Just waiting.
Did he invite me yet? Did he invite me yet?
Yeah. Oh man.
Dude.
See you next year. All right.
Yeah, see you next year. Yeah, we'll make this a routine right before Thanksgiving then. No, any shout outs you want to do before you take off?
Shout out to all my teammates on the Outlaws. Shout out to all the people who have helped me along the way. I'm sure you know who you are. Ex-teammates, parents, everyone who supported me. That's about it. And you guys, obviously.
All right. ZP, shout outs?
Shout outs to Benadryl, which can knock you out right before a broadcast. Probably deserved it. But other than that, really, standard shoutouts. Feel free to follow on Twitter at TempoZP, and don't take allergy medicine before you have to go on the podcast. It's a bad idea.
I'm just glad you made it, dude. It definitely wouldn't have been the same if we weren't here. Ben, how about you?
I don't know what to shout out right now because there's nothing happening.
There's no events, that's for sure.
There's no events. There's nothing until December 6th, I should say, which is the Overwatch League preseason. So I guess take a couple weekends off, enjoy some Overwatch, maybe play PTR. There you go, play PTR.
There we go.
Moira's out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll see you on ranked. I haven't been streaming much lately because my computer's been weird.
You need to get a new computer.
Like
dude.
Weird, dude. Super weird. But I'll see you in ranked if you're on West Coast and in the GM range. I'll see you guys. I'm gonna be playing a lot this week.
Awesome. I'll round things out. Thanks to the three of you guys for doing the show tonight. It was a lot of fun. Everybody from staying up late too and watching us. It's one of our longer ones. We tend to not go this long, but this is definitely well worth it. You can find the overview on iTunes as well as Google Play and SoundCloud if you want to listen to us on the way to work. And when you work out, yes, they actually do, ZP. Last time you and Flame were laughing, we got like 20 tweets with people telling us that they listen to us when they work out. So, yes, they actually listen to us when they work out too. You can also find the VODs, if you want to watch us on video, on youtube.com/ChanManV. So, subscribe to that. If you're interested in that, follow us all on Twitter. It's at ChanManV, at Fishstix, at TempoZP, and at like Clockwork. You can follow the show too at the OverView GG. But other than that, that's going to be it, guys, for this week. So for Clockwork, ZP, and Fishstix, and myself, ChanManV, we'll see you next week. Later.
A cold night getting warmer now. The ground shakes as I